my name is Rachel Mayo. Welcome to my channel and thank you for being here. I'm going to be discussing the effects of the new moon that's happening in the sign of Gemini. This new moon is happening on the 30th of May at 9 degrees of Gemini. So essentially, we're going to talk about how this new moon is going to affect you according to the degree that is being activated and, of course, your rising signs. And if you'd like to know how this new moon is going to impact you on an emotional level, I suggest that you watch your moon sign as well. So watch your ascendant sign, your moon sign, and your sun sign, and then put everything together. Something is going to make sense. So if you don't have your birth chart, I suggest you go to astro.com to get a free natal birth chart. This way you'll be able to find out your placements, your ascendant, your moon sign. Of course, you already know your sun sign. So find out the placement of your ascendant and your moon sign. This is going to be very helpful in every video forecast that I do. So this new moon is happening at 9 degrees of Gemini. This is the activated degree. So therefore, if you have anything at 9 degrees of Gemini, you're going to feel this new moon on an intense and personal level. The other sign that's also going to be affected is the opposing sign of Sagittarius. So check to see if you have anything at 9 degrees of Sagittarius, because whatever you have at that degree is going to be opposed by this new moon. Also check to see what you have in the sign of Virgo at 9 degrees of Virgo and Pisces at 9 degrees of Pisces. These two signs are going to feel the challenging aspect, the aspect we call the square. So the square is an aspect which pushes you to take some type of action. So therefore, some people don't like to be pushed to take action, and at other times this is actually a positive because it will push you to go towards what you need to. It will push you to make some changes. It will push you to have those new beginnings. So it's not always negative when you have the square aspect. The Gemini new moon is bringing a sense of fresh air, a breath of fresh air, because this is the moon. This new moon is the lunation that closes off the eclipse cycle for the first part of the year, the first half of the year. And the other reason why I think this is a positive moon is because this is the first lunation in the Gemini Sagittarius axis that we're having without the north node and the south node. So this reduces some of the complication and some of the intense energy that could come around when the nodes are there, signaling that it could be an eclipse. So no more eclipses in this axis. So this is just a regular lunation, and it's a lunation in the sign of Gemini, which is very youthful. It's all about information, communication, the media, our immediate environment, our neighbors, our siblings, of course, and our computers. We always have to see what the ruler of the lunation is doing. Therefore, Mercury is the ruler of this lunation, and it's traveling retrograde. Since the ruler of the new moon is traveling retrograde, going backwards, it's suggesting that perhaps we have to redo certain things in the house of Gemini before we begin anew. We have to do everything that starts with an RE, redo, revise, revising contracts, returning some items, or certain items could be returned to you. And of course, Mercury has a tendency of bringing back old lovers. So your ex could be part of this lunation. He could come back, or she could come back, and perhaps you have some unresolved issues that have to be looked over and settled once and for all. It could be a good idea to take back your ex if they deserve it, but some of these relationships, especially if they ended because of the previous eclipses that we had, they should just be left in the past. It's time for you to just start afresh and move on to new adventures and start creating new karma. Leave the old karma and the old baggage in the past. So let's briefly go over again what Mercury rules. Mercury rules the natural third house of the zodiac. And what is the third house rule over? It rules over communication, our communication devices, short distance travel, our immediate environment, our neighbors, our siblings. This is the house where we put effort. This is also the house where we learn something new. It's a house of learned skills. Skills that we could use to probably skills that we could use to earn money. So basic education is also ruled in this house. So these are the areas we're perhaps going to have to look over. Since Mercury also rules over communication, it could mean that there could be some type of communication coming through the social media, or perhaps in the news. There could be some type of an announcement. The tightest aspect of this lunation is Mars conjuncting Jupiter in the sign of Aries at around almost 4 degrees. This aspect is actually sextiling the lunation, even though it's a bit of a wide sextile, but because this is a lunation, we're going to include this aspect. And Mars is freshly transiting his own sign of Aries. This is excellent energy. Mars is dominant in Aries. He rules this sign. He's at home. Mars has a 2-year cycle around the zodiac, so he hasn't been in this position for a while. And aspecting this lunation with a conjunction of Jupiter. Jupiter is the wise guru. So whatever action that Mars is going to take is going to be somewhat well thought out. We all know that Mars likes to act now and think later, but since it's conjunct wise Jupiter, we're actually going to think about our actions before we actually just jump forward and take them, which is a very, very positive aspect. And this aspect, aspecting the new moon, is also a harmonious aspect. It's a sextile aspect that gives us an opportunity to make something happen. However, like I always say, with the sextile aspect, you have to take action. The opportunity will be presented to you, but you have to move forward to it and grab it. Mars is giving you all the energy that you need to make these initiations, all these initiations happen. Mars and Jupiter are not going to conjunct in the sign of Aries for another 12 years, simply because Mars has a 2-year orb around the zodiac. So by the time he's made it halfway around, Jupiter will have already moved into the sign of Taurus. Jupiter has a 12-year orb around the zodiac. So this energy is a powerhouse that is being presented to boost the energy and give you wisdom so that you can initiate something really meaningful in the house of Gemini, because these two are not going to meet in this conjunction for a very long time to come. Before you just jump ahead and initiate something that you possibly could regret later, because Mercury is after all retrograde at this time. We all felt the heaviness and the intensity of the lunations. Oh my God, these eclipses were no joke, especially the one in Scorpio. So I love this lunation in the sign of Gemini because it's not an eclipse. Gemini is ready to take well thought out action at this lunation. My advice for all of us is to think carefully about the things that you want to begin around this lunation, simply because the ruler of the lunation is going backwards. He's asking you to rethink certain things. Just don't jump forward. You don't have all the information that is needed for you to move forward. Mercury is going to move forward on the 3rd of June. So after Mercury moves forward, you are going to have the information that is needed for you to make life-changing decisions or for you to make initiations. So I would advise you to just wait until Mercury is moving direct before you jump into any major commitments. Let's briefly go over the aspects of this lunation. So you always have to start with where the lunation is happening. And of course, we've already established that the new moon is happening in the sign of Gemini. So as you can see on the chart, the moon and the sun are conjunct. This is essentially what a new moon means. Is the conjunction of the luminaries, and a full moon is an opposition of the luminaries. However, this is a new moon in the sign of Gemini at around 9 degrees. Ignore where the ascendant is placed and the houses, simply because I made this chart for my location, which is New York. So if you're in New York, this is your chart. But if you don't live in New York, I suggest you find out what time this lunation is happening in your location and then use that time to make a chart. I always try to locate where the ruler of the event or the lunation is located or transiting in the chart. Mercury has retrograded into the sign of Taurus. So this means that whatever it is that we're thinking or evaluating, we want to get real tangible results. In the sign of Taurus, Mercury wants something real and tangible. Mercury retrograde at around 26 degrees of Taurus is in a trine with Pluto, who's also going retrograde in the sign of Capricorn. This is deep transformative information that we're going to possibly discover because, you know, Pluto likes to transform whatever it touches. Pluto likes to go deep. So we are going to have to go deep within ourselves. We have to introspect and really ask ourselves, is this the direction that is this the new direction that we want to go? Is this new direction really going to Is this new direction really going to bring or establish something really concrete in our lives? This is the question you have to ask yourselves. Mercury is also in sextile with transiting Neptune, who is powerful, transiting his own sign of Pisces at around 25 degrees. This is a somewhat spiritual aspect and healing aspect. So if somebody needs some type of if somebody needs some type of therapy, some mental therapy, or if you need to sit down and talk to someone, this aspect is encouraging you to go deep and go. This aspect is encouraging you to actually go deep because it's also in communication in a sextile with transiting Pluto, who's also going retrograde. This aspect is kind of screaming to you to get your therapy on, talk to someone, or perhaps if it's a very complicated situation, maybe hire an investigator, somebody who could go deep and really discover what is hidden beneath the surface. Or perhaps you could do this yourself. Mercury is not encouraging you to just jump forward and do things without thinking them through. Mercury is asking you to pause, take some time to reevaluate every situation before you make any definite moves. Wait until Mercury retrograde is over. It's going to be over. Mercury is going to be moving direct in a few days, around the 3rd or the 4th of June, depending on your location. The tightest aspect at this lunation is Jupiter conjunct Mars. And as I said earlier, Jupiter conjunct Mars is a very high energy conjunction. If you want to understand more about Jupiter's transit in the sign of Aries and how it's going to benefit certain signs, I suggest you go back and watch my video that I did on Jupiter transiting in the sign of Aries. There's a lot of information that is going to help you tie everything into this lunation, because now that energy that I was speaking about in that video of Jupiter transiting Aries is being emphasized in this is being emphasized at this lunation, because the owner of the house, Mars, is now transiting his house and is now pretty much saying hello to Jupiter and welcoming him in his house. The Aries house in your chart is going to have a lot of energy. You're going to have a lot of enthusiasm and perhaps some wisdom for those who are ready to take this information, for those who are ready to go deep and investigate and go back and look over certain details. That will give you the wisdom right there. If you do not go back and look over certain details, you're probably going to jump into a new beginning ill-equipped. So be wise, be smart, use this lunation to reevaluate situations before you make any definite moves. We cannot overlook the fact that Saturn is still aspecting the North Node in a tough square. This aspect has been encouraging us to make some really tough decisions. Fortunately, this aspect is about to break. So essentially that means that pressure that we've been feeling to make serious decisions is going to ease up. Saturn is currently around 26 degrees of Aquarius, and the transiting node, I believe, is still around 22 degrees of Taurus. So this aspect is separating. The other aspect that Mercury is making at this lunation is a square to Saturn. That is an uncomfortable aspect. And sometimes it brings an element of bad news or difficult news. So perhaps at this lunation, some of us may receive some serious news, some bad news. This news is not going to be about something new, because Mercury is going retrograde. It's probably going to be news about something that was already going on, or perhaps even started around the time Mercury was going retrograde or during its shadow period. So this new moon has some aspects of really good news and enthusiasm, but at the same time it has an element of seriousness coming from Saturn still squaring the nodes, and Saturn of course squaring Mercury retrograde, who is the ruler of this lunation. Venus is currently around 2 degrees Taurus. She is dominant in her sign. She's very powerful. Unfortunately, there's an out of sign square with planet Pluto, who's currently still in the sign of Capricorn. Pluto square Venus is power struggles over love, money, relationships, agreements. So expect to see an element of that as well, because this is being highlighted at this lunation. I always focus on the major aspect of a lunation, because once you begin to include asteroids and all that, it kind of gets messy. So I just stick to the basics, and you can find out a lot of information just by looking at the basics and the exact aspects. If you like the content of this video and you find value in it and you'd like to support my channel, there is a tip button below this video. Any amount you'd like to donate is appreciated. And if you cannot donate at this time, I would appreciate your subscription. So please hit subscribe and share my video on your social media, or perhaps with your friends and family. And if you can't do any of that, please leave me a comment below this video in the comment section. I always answer viewer comments or questions promptly. All of that helps. And if you can't do that, then just like this video. That helps too. Anything and everything you could do is welcome. Thank you so much. Aries, ascendant, sun or moon. This new moon is happening in your 3rd house. This is the area where you're going to have new beginnings and perhaps some tough decisions to make. Mercury, the ruler of this lunation, is currently going retrograde. So before you initiate anything new in this area, I suggest that you go backwards, go and re-look over certain contracts, go and re-look or re-examine past communications. The 3rd house rules over things like our neighbors, our siblings, communications, all type of communications. This area also rules over our immediate environment, our neighborhood, short distance travel, learned skills, computers. Perhaps one of your devices is going to break down, and before you throw it out, perhaps it's just a small issue which could be fixed. So have that looked over before you make a decision to throw out a device. This is the house of short distance travel. I would suggest you check your engine, make sure your car is functioning properly before you decide to go out, even on a short distance ride, because you just never know with Mercury retrograde, there could be something wrong with your car. Your ruling planet Mars is a big part of this lunation because he's aspecting the new moon. Because he's aspecting the new moon in a sextile. Mars is currently transiting his own sign of Aries, your sign, and is conjunct the planet Jupiter. This is a lot of energy. Be careful. Do not just go ahead and do things without thinking them through. This is energy that is available to you, but it's energy that you have to use wisely. Think over whatever it is that you want to initiate. Just don't jump into it. This is a time for you to reevaluate situations before you press push. This is a positive new moon for you, Aries, and you can accomplish a lot at this lunation. Make sure you're communicating wisely. Jupiter is there to give you some wisdom. If you didn't listen to the beginning of this video, I suggest you go back and listen all the way, because everything I say in the introduction pertains to your sign. So enjoy this new moon, Aries, and try to wait until after the 3rd of June before you go ahead and make initiations. Mercury will be going direct at that time. Taurus, ascendant, sun or moon. Mercury, the ruler of this lunation, is currently going retrograde. So this means that we have to go backwards we have to rethink certain issues that pertain to the house where this lunation is happening. And this lunation is happening in your second house. What does the second house rule over? It rules over love and money. Anything that we love and value is ruled by the second house, by Venus. Essentially, that is our earning ability, our ability to go out there and make a living. The second house also rules over the family that we make with another person, not the family that we're forced to be born into. We actually choose this family. This family comes about because we get married and have children, or perhaps just with another person, a partner. The second house also rules over our mouth. So what comes into our mouth and what comes out of our mouth. So there could be new beginnings in this area also. Perhaps you need to rethink your diet, or perhaps even some of the things that you say to people. Maybe you just speak without thinking. This is time for you to go deep, and think about the things that think about things before you just say them. This house also rules over our self-esteem. So perhaps you need to go back and reevaluate. If you're suffering from low self-esteem, perhaps you need to go back and reevaluate how you feel about yourself, or how the people that you have around you, the people that you call your family, how they make you feel. Maybe you have some things that you've been thinking about, some things that you've really been deep in thought about. Maybe you have some things that you need to say to your family, or perhaps with the people that you're making money with. The second house rules over money. So perhaps an old bill that you had forgotten about could be presented to you at this time, returned to you at this time for payment. And perhaps there's some confusion or some mistakes or some overcharges, or perhaps you're being overcharged and you have to dispute this charge. Your ruling planet Venus is currently transiting your sign. So you're feeling powerful and empowered at this new moon. However, your ruling planet is in an out of sign square with Pluto, who's transiting retrograde. So Pluto square Venus is power struggles, and these power struggles could perhaps be about money or relationships, or how you feel valued in your relationships, or how you charge for your, or perhaps there'll be conflicts about how much you charge for your services. Perhaps you're undervaluing yourself and you need to raise your prices. So this new moon might be a little bit tricky for you, simply because your ruling planet, even if it's dominant, transiting its own sign, it's in a square with a very powerful planet, Pluto, who is the ruler of the south nodes. So the rulers of the nodes are basically kind of fighting each other at this lunation. Taurus, tell me how this lunation works out for you, because this is looking like a very sticky and interesting type of interesting situation going on. Gemini, ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening conjunct your ascendant. This is a very, very powerful new beginning for you. An ascendant is an angle. Therefore, this lunation is going to activate all the other angles. It's going to activate your descendant. So perhaps you want your partners to start looking at you in a new way. Perhaps you're going to change something about yourself, your actual body. But perhaps you're going to decide to start dressing in a different way, or perhaps you're going to color your hair. For some people, this could also be the time that they come out about their sexual orientation, if it's any different from what others thought it was. This is an excellent time for you to actually make this announcement. However, I would advise you to wait until your ruling planet Mercury is moving direct and back in your sign. That would be the best ideal time for you to make such an announcement. The other angle that is activated is your MC. Of course, that's your standing in society, the work that you do. And the MC opposes the IC, so perhaps there could be something going on in your home area as a result of all the new beginnings that are happening with your ascendant, with yourself. So your ruling planet Mercury is currently transiting retrograde. This means that you're being asked essentially to rethink these decisions before you just jump ahead with excitement from this new moon sextiling Mars and Jupiter. You're going to feel really energized, at this new moon. I suggest you slow down, and rethink all these big decisions that you're about to make. And some of you could actually get some not so positive news because Saturn is squaring Mercury at this lunation. Go back and reevaluate all the information, everything that you have about whatever it is that you'd like to start whatever it is that you'd like to start brand new that concerns any of the angles in your chart. Every sign gets a new moon once a year. This is your chance to begin something that's really important, something that's really important to you, something that is positive and going to change you on a deep and internal level, because on a deep and internal level, there will be transformation, some type of transformation at this lunation, because Mercury, your ruling planet, is trining Pluto at this lunation. Take advantage of this energy, just be careful and try and make your decisions after your ruling planet Mercury starts moving forward. It's only a couple of days. It's going to happen around June 3rd. Cancer ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening in your 12th house. The 12th house is where you're going to experience some type of new beginning. However, the ruler of this lunation, Mercury, is going retrograde. So I suggest that you rethink, go over some information pertaining to this house before you make some definite decisions. And after you've rethought and looked over all the information that you have, I'd suggest you wait until Mercury goes direct, and this is happening only a few days after this lunation on the 3rd of June. At around that time, you will have all the information that you don't have at this lunation. So just wait, be patient. Your ruling planet, the moon, the luminary, is always part of any lunation. So therefore that means that Cancer is always intensely affected by lunations. This happens every month with the new moon and with the full moon. Your ruling planet is being positively aspected at this lunation because the moon is in sextile with Mars and Jupiter, who are currently transiting in the sign of Aries. This is a very powerful and positive aspect that is giving you, that is energizing you, the moon, to have the courage and the wisdom to move forward and start something new with force and confidence. So what does the 12th house rule over? The 12th house rules over our hidden enemies, our self-sabotaging habits. It rules old generational karma that you didn't make, karma that you inherited because you were born with a certain last name into a certain family. The 12th house also rules over dark, hidden places like hospitals, prisons, asylums, anything that is away from society. This house also rules over the hidden realms, the other worlds, the aliens. All this falls into the 12th house because none of us really know if they're aliens or they're other worlds. But so far it's still somewhat a hidden realm. Spirituality and psychic abilities also part of the 12th house. And since the messenger Mercury is being highlighted at this lunation and is the ruler of this lunation, some of you could get divine messages from the outer realms or the other worlds, or perhaps even from your ancestors. This could be transformative, serious information. So use this information wisely. So for example, if some of you have been wanting to stop a self-sabotaging habit, this will be an excellent time for you to go and get some help or some therapy, or going to rehab to go and detox. Mercury, the ruling planet of this lunation, is going backwards. So yes, do go back over your bad habits, your self-sabotaging habits. Go back if you're finding, go back and examine, ask yourself, have a deep conversation with yourself. Are these self-sabotaging habits moving you into a positive future or a negative future? And after you've evaluated that it's not positive, of course it's not positive, investigate. Find out the best place or find the best person who can assist you. This is an excellent time for talk therapy, cognitive therapy. Go and talk to someone. This energy is encouraging you to do just that. Virgo, ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening in your 10th house. This is the area where you're going to have new beginnings. Virgo is ruled by the planet Mercury. Mercury is currently going retrograde in the sign of Taurus. So your ruling planet is asking you to go back over certain details of the 10th house. And what does the 10th house rule over? It rules over our work. It rules over our standing in society, our authority figures, our work area. Has something been going on in the area as a result of the eclipses? Were there some revelations? Did some people leave? Mercury is asking you to not make a decision about anything right away. Try not to quit your job at this time. You don't have all the needed information. Wait until your ruling planet is moving forward, which is going to happen in only a couple of days, around June 3rd. Then you can go ahead and make new beginnings. Your ruling planet is in square with Saturn. So this aspect is saying that perhaps you're going to have some serious news, or perhaps even bad news presented to you at this lunation, or some things or contracts that you really have to seriously go over and make some really tough decisions, because Saturn is also squaring the North Node and the South Node. So you are being asked to make wise decisions, and it's actually going to be possible at this time because of the tight aspect between Mars and Jupiter, which is giving you the energy and exuberance that you need, but at the same time it's also giving you the wisdom to think before you act. Some of you may be starting a new job at this time. I suggest, if you're signing a contract, look over the small details. Look over the fine print, and if you can afford to do so, hire a lawyer to look over this contract before you sign it. If they're not making you sign that contract on that very day of the lunation, I would suggest that you sign it after the 3rd of June. And if you have to sign it, go ahead and sign it and start your new job. Just be aware that when you sign a contract under Mercury retrograde, you might miss out something in the fine print, or you might have to relook, or later on down the line, things are going to have to be revised and changed in the contract, or perhaps even the job itself. So don't let Mercury retrograde stop you from beginning a new job or signing a contract. Just be very careful to look over the things that I mentioned before. Libra, ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening in your 9th house. This is the area where you're going to have some new beginnings, and perhaps you have to look over certain documents or certain paperwork, especially since this is the 9th house. The 9th house rules over legal issues. It rules over law and order. It rules over religion, foreign lands. This area also rules our higher belief system, a belief system that was probably passed down to us. This area also rules higher education, universities, college, our professors, our gurus. It also rules religion. So you could be starting something new in any of the things that I just mentioned. Mercury, the ruler of this new moon, is currently going retrograde in the sign of Taurus, and also squaring Saturn in the sign of Aquarius. This is where the seriousness of this lunation comes in. So perhaps you're going to receive some type of serious news, or perhaps even bad news, or you may have to make some really tough decisions, because Saturn is also still squaring the transiting North Node and South Node. One positive thing is that Mercury is making a trine aspect to Pluto. So whatever happens at this lunation is going to require some deep investigation and retrospection. Some type of deep transformation is going to happen, whether it's mentally or on the exterior, or perhaps it's happening in your physical environment. So if you have some documents or paperwork to review, maybe concerning a green card or some other type of legal paperwork for you to perhaps work or travel to a foreign country, make sure you're looking at every little detail, all the fine print, because these are legal issues. You don't want to make a mistake here. And if you are traveling, I would suggest you choose a date after June 3rd, when the ruler of your ninth house is moving direct. That way you're going to avoid all types of mishaps and delays. That is very common with Mercury transiting retrograde, but it transiting retrograde in a house of long distance travel. You want to make sure that your documents are secured and you have all the relevant information that you need to make this journey. And if you're filling out an application for university, I suggest that you really read everything. Try and find out as much information as you can about whatever program or degree that you're getting into. Perhaps there was some information that was not clear, or perhaps there's some missing information. So go back and just look everything over. For some of you, this could be about religion or church, or some information that you find out perhaps about a guru, a professor. Before you go ahead and make a quick judgment about whatever it is that you find out, make sure that you're getting correct information. Make sure that your sources are definitely valid and trustworthy. Because Jupiter does rule the ninth house of the zodiac after all. He's asking you to be wise and use this energy of the conjunction of Mars and Jupiter to make wise choices, wise decisions. Yes, do go ahead, but do so carefully. Scorpio ascendant, sun or moon. This new moon is happening in your 8th house. This is where you're going to have brand new beginnings. This is the area where you're going to have new beginnings. Unfortunately, Mercury, the ruler of this lunation, is moving retrograde. This means that we cannot jump ahead and just make decisions without rethinking them, going over all the fine print and small details. The 8th house rules over other people's money. So yes, be very careful. You're dealing with other people's money and loans, mortgages, inheritances. It also rules over deep intimacy. The 8th house is the area where we bond with another at a soul deep level. The 8th house also rules over sex, death, and rebirth. So essentially, you could be starting something new in any of the things that I just mentioned. Your ruling planet, Mars, is very involved in this lunation. It is conjunct transiting Jupiter in the sign of Aries. Mars is very dominant because it's in Aries, the sign that it rules. So you are essentially very empowered at this lunation. You'll be feeling very energized and just ready to go. However, whatever it is that you're trying to do at this trying to initiate at this lunation, you have to do it with some reconsideration and some wisdom. That is what Mars conjunct Jupiter is asking you to do. Just don't jump and start something. Think about it and get some advice before you go ahead and move forward. Your other ruling planet, Pluto, is in trine with Mercury, the ruler of this lunation. So that is a positive aspect for you. That is a positive aspect, a very harmonious aspect that is going to allow information to flow harmoniously. This is information that you're going to go over. It's going to be easy for you to redo things, re-look over contracts, investigate issues. Pluto likes to go deep and under. And with the trine to Mercury, this is very positive and transformative as long as you use this energy the way it's supposed to. The way it's supposed to be used. For example, some of you may be in process of applying for a loan, a car loan, or a mortgage. If that is what you're doing, make sure you look at the interest rate. Make sure you're looking at all the fine print before you commit yourself to this contract, because this is other people's money that you're dealing with. If you miss any details and sign the contract, this is probably something that you're going to regret a little bit later when Mercury goes direct only a couple of days. If there is a contract that you have to sign I'd suggest that you wait until after the 3rd. Then you can go ahead and sign it. It's only a couple of days. It's really worth the wait. The 8th house also rules over deep, intimate relationships. So perhaps this is the time that some of you want to begin a new relationship, an intimate relationship. I would suggest that you just wait until Mercury is moving direct. Mercury is the ruler of your house of intimacy. And for those who are going through a divorce or some type of separation, or perhaps you're trying to split your assets from the marriage, I would suggest just wait until Mercury goes direct. Then you can go over all the details. You don't want to be cheated or misled because you don't have all the information. Please just wait for Mercury to start moving direct, and then you can sign on the dotted line. Sagittarius, ascendant, sun or moon. This new moon is happening in your 7th house. This is where you're going to have new beginnings. This area rules over marriage, our marriage partner, our committed relationships, our business partner. It also rules over business, because essentially, in order for you to do business with someone, in order for you to do business, there has to be the other. This is the house of the other. So you are definitely going to be dealing with issues that concern the other, another person at this new moon. The ruler of this lunation, Mercury, is currently transiting retrograde. So this means that whatever decisions that you're trying to this means that whatever decisions you're making at this lunation, it's best that you look over the fine print, look at all the details, reinvestigate things that need to be investigated. Go over things with your attorney before you sign on the dotted line. This is the area where we make agreements. So you want to be bonded to an agreement that is actually beneficial to you. The 7th house also rules committed relationships. Mercury is going retrograde. I would not suggest that you begin a brand new relationship during Mercury retrograde. There might be some things that you're not seeing clearly. Don't get married during a Mercury retrograde, because because later on you encounter situations that perhaps your spouse did not tell you about, and they'll come out after you've already signed on the dotted line. So it's only a few days. It's on the 3rd of June that Mercury is going to go direct. If you can wait until after the retrograde motion is over before you sign anywhere on the dotted line. Your ruling planet Jupiter is currently conjunct Mars and aspecting this new moon. This means that you're highly empowered and energized. This also aspects your sign by a trine aspect, so the energy is really flowing towards you, Sagittarius. So this means that if you're patient, and of course use wise judgment, use wisdom before making any decisions, things could actually work out in your favor, especially if you wait until after the retrograde is over. If you didn't listen to the beginning of this video, I suggest that you go back and watch this video from the beginning, because most of that information is somewhat pertaining to you, because it's pertaining to your partner. This way is because it pertains to you simply because it's pertaining to your partner, who's having all these new beginnings. Your partnership area is having all these new beginnings that will essentially affect you. So go and listen to what's really going on with your partnerships and your marriage. That way you can make better decisions after you've evaluated all the information at hand. Capricorn, ascendant, sun or moon. This lunation is happening in your 6th house. This is the area where you're going to have new beginnings. The ruler of this lunation, Mercury, is currently transiting retrograde and aspecting your ruling planet, Saturn. Saturn is currently transiting the sign of Aquarius. So Mercury and Saturn are in a square at this lunation. It is an out of sign square. It is still valid. So you are probably going to have some serious information that you're probably going to be presented with some serious information, because Saturn is still squaring the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. So that aspect has been present for a while, and it's probably going to break sometime. It's probably going to break sometime next month. You have some rethinking to do, some reconsideration of things in the areas of the houses that are aspected. And then after you've done all that reevaluation, you have to make some really tough decisions that are going to affect your future. This is somewhat of a tough transit, and it's been ongoing for a while. You may have felt like you're stuck in mud. When this aspect separates the square to the north node, you're going to feel much lighter, and you're probably going to move forward with some really wise decisions. What does the sixth house rule over? The sixth house rules over our daily routine. What do you do every day when you wake up? What do you eat? So essentially it rules over our health and diet and our exercise regimen. The sixth house also rules over our pets. We take care of our pets every day. The other thing that is a sixth house issue is our work. We go to work every day. And our co-workers. Everything that has to do with your work environment is ruled under the sixth house. The sixth house is a fighting house. The sixth house is a fighting house. We expend a lot of energy there. The sixth house also rules over our known enemies. Our unknown enemies are in the opposite house, in the 12th house. Our known enemies are in the sixth house. And known enemies are people that you see and interact with every day. Your co-workers or your boss could essentially become a known enemy. So a pay raise or a promotion could essentially make your co-worker your competitor, and eventually making them your open enemy. You are against each other. The sixth house also rules lawyers. Lawyers fight for our rights in the sixth house. When you have a situation at your workplace, you're going to hire an attorney. So if you've been looking for a job for a while and you finally landed a job and they're asking you to sign a contract, I would suggest that you have your lawyer, the sixth house person, look over this contract so that he may go over all the details and read over the fine print. Have a lawyer look over this contract before you sign it. And if you can avoid signing this contract, and if you can't afford an attorney and you can avoid signing this contract until a couple of days later, after Mercury goes forward, I'll suggest you do so. But if you have to sign this contract and you have to start this job right away, just go ahead. Just go ahead and start it. Just know that some aspect of your job is going to have to change or is going to have to be looked over. If you do start a job during a Mercury retrograde, just know that there will be changes to whatever contract or agreement that you had about this employment. If you want to start a brand new lawsuit, I suggest that you wait until Mercury moves forward, because you want the planet of communication moving direct when you start something as serious and totally brand new as a new lawsuit. That involves another sixth house person, a lawyer. So it's advisable that you go and initiate this lawsuit when the planet of communication is moving direct. Aquarius, ascendant, sun, or moon. This new moon is happening in your fifth house. This is the area where you're going to have new beginnings. However, the ruler of this lunation, Mercury, is currently transiting retrograde. So that means that before you start anything in this area, it's advisable that you go backwards, reinvestigate, look over certain details, and make sure you have all the needed information. Unfortunately, since Mercury is retrograde, you're not going to have all the information that you need at this lunation. You're going to have to wait a few days after, around the 3rd of June, when Mercury is moving direct. Then you can make a wise decision. Your ruling planet Saturn is currently transiting your sign, so he's very powerful. However, Saturn is squaring the planet that's ruling this lunation, Mercury, who's also moving backwards. Hence the stop, wait, go back, look back, redo certain things before you move ahead. The square aspect is a challenging aspect. Let's not forget that Saturn is still currently squaring the transiting north node and the south node in Taurus. So this is almost like double notice. So whatever decision that you're going to make at this lunation is going to be about a serious issue. The square to Mercury is probably going to bring some serious news and perhaps some bad news for some people. I wouldn't be jumping into conclusions and making rush moves at this new moon. Your other ruling planet Uranus is not aspecting this lunation. So we have to therefore just concentrate on what Saturn is doing at this lunation, because the decisions that you make at this new moon are going to really impact the direction of your life, your future. So what does the fifth house rule over? The fifth house rules over our creative ability. It rules over our children, entertainment, creativity, talents, and small businesses. We usually start small businesses using our creative talents. So essentially, a small business is like our baby. Our biggest creation are our children. That is a result of our creative ability. It's very likely that you're going to start something new in any area of the things that I mentioned. If the new beginning has to do with a child's education, perhaps you're needing to make a decision whether you want to whether you want to homeschool your children or send them to school. Perhaps there's some things that you need to go over with an educator. And for some, there might be a contract that you need to sign. And this is something that you may need to ask the advice of an attorney, or just be careful and look over the fine details and the fine print. This area rules over vacations, entertainment. So if you're planning to take a vacation, I'll suggest that you wait until Mercury is moving direct, because of course if you're taking a vacation, there will be travel involved. So you don't want any mishaps or mistakes or delays to happen because you're impatient and you're not really looking over all the fine print and the details. And for those who want to start a small business, this is not the time really for you to initiate this new beginning. It's always advisable to make initiations a few days after the moon is visible in the sky. The moon essentially appears a few days after the lunation. So I always advise my clients to start new beginnings 2 to 3 days after the lunation. And this makes sense because 2 to 3 days after this lunation, Mercury, the ruler of the lunation, will be moving direct. One really positive aspect of this lunation is the fact that Aquarius trines Gemini. So this means that the energy will be flowing harmoniously between the houses. So whatever difficulty that you have at this lunation, you will be able to figure it out, especially if you're being careful and using good judgment and not just jumping to take action, because also we have to remember that this lunation is being aspected by the Mars-Jupiter conjunction that is happening in the sign of Aries, and Aries sextiles your sign. This means that opportunities will be presented to you, but you have to make some effort in order to make something happen with this energy. This is a really good and powerful new moon, which is aspecting you favorably as long as you use wisdom and good judgment before you make any new beginnings, before you sign any documents. Pisces ascendant, sun or moon. This new moon is happening in your 4th house. This is the area where you're going to have some new beginnings. The ruler of this lunation, Mercury, is currently transiting retrograde and asking us to go over the fine print, over the details before we make any serious decisions. Neptune, your ruling planet, is aspecting the ruler of this lunation, Mercury, in a sextile aspect. This means that you're going to be presented with opportunities to take some type of action that is going to be very favorable for you. Your other ruling planet, Jupiter, is also a big part of this lunation. So this means that Pisces is going to be highly empowered at this lunation. Jupiter is freshly transiting the sign of Aries and is in conjunction with its host. Jupiter is being hosted by Mars because Mars rules the sign of Aries, and Mars is dominant in the sign of Aries. So you two are having a party. This conjunction gives a lot of energy, a lot of confidence, this is let's just go ahead and do it type of energy. So you might forget to look at the fine print or the details of whatever is going to be presented to you at this new moon. So what does the 4th house rule over? The 4th house rules over our family, our ancestors. It rules over our deep emotions and perhaps some deep hidden resentments that we may have. This area also rules over your home, your homeland, your mother, and your family. So these resentments could be towards any of those situations. The fourth house is an angle house. It's the IC, and it opposes the MC and squares the ascendant and squares the descendant. Whatever it is you're going to initiate in the fourth house, your home area, is going to affect your relationships with other people, and it's also going to affect how you're seen in society. Perhaps something is going to change at your work area, or perhaps because of the things that you begin anew in the home area, you may have to change your work. You may have to change your work or how you're seen by society. The ascendant is also activated because this is you, and you are the one and you are the person making this. And you are the person who has to make all these decisions. So if you're buying a new home and you have a contract to sign, you have a closing around the date of the new moon. If it's possible, I would suggest that you do the closing after Mercury goes forward. Mercury rules contracts, it rules communication, it rules the written word. You may not have all the information that you need in order to proceed with this closing. So it would be best for you to wait a few days before you close on this house. For some of you, the new beginning could be with a family member. Perhaps you have a new family member coming to live with you in your home. Or perhaps some of you have a new birth, an addition to the family. And of course, that is a major new beginning. If this situation involves any type of written contract, any type of agreement, whether written or spoken, I would suggest you just wait until I would suggest you wait until the planet that rules all these things is moving direct. It's only a couple of days. Pisces has had a lot of energy going on in their sign, and actually most of it has been quite positive. If you haven't watched my other videos on the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, I suggest that you go and watch that, and also watch the video for Jupiter transiting the sign of Aries. This is going to give you a whole lot of information that you're going to need to tie everything all together. All this energy has been building up and building up to this moment. Mars and Jupiter will not meet again in this sign because Mars has a 2-year orb around the zodiac, so he will not be able to catch up with Jupiter because Jupiter will have moved on into the sign of Taurus by the time Mars catches up. So this is energy for you to start something really brand new in your Gemini house using wisdom, because Jupiter does rule over wisdom. However, Neptune can make details a little bit fuzzy. So I would err onto the side of Jupiter and use wisdom and rethink every decision before you go ahead and just do it.